Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Now I need to remind you that there is a 20% discount that is valid until the end of October that you can use and book an appointment up to 90 days in advance, which will last you right up until Christmas this year, 2025. So for the rest of this year, I'm offering a 20% discount. So whiz over to maryenglish.com. You'll only get a few seconds. I think you have to wait on the website for about 3 seconds, and a box will pop up. Just pop your email address in there and then the code will be revealed, and then you can stay on the website and click the button book with Mary and choose the appointment you'd like to have. Remember the code, write it down somewhere, and if you add that into the code box, you'll get 20% off everything except Learn Astrology with Mary lessons. So that will cover astrology, palmistry, psychic readings and hypnotherapy. You get 20% off. So whiz over there today. Now, this week we have a fabulous guest, so I'm going to introduce her. We have a guest today. We got Mandi Lockley, and she's an astrologer, a healer, an intuitive empath, a light worker, speaker, author, and psychic medium. And she recently published a book, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So welcome, Mandi. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really good. The sun's shining outside, which is always a good start to the day.
Absolutely, yeah, it's sunny here. Now, so tell me how you first got into astrology. We'll cover the other things that you're trained in, but talk me about how you even heard about astrology and you got into it to start with.
Yeah, it was definitely to start with the sun sign columns. And
Hmm.
when I was younger, there were some pretty decent sun sign columns actually. And my parents took the Sunday Times, and I always grabbed the Style magazine first. And there was Shelley von Strunkel, and I quite liked the way she talked about astrology. It made me feel there was a little bit more to it. And then a little bit later, I think Jonathan Kane came along, and he was quite insightful with his astrology, kind of went a little bit more deep into it. And then, of course, I just like most astrologers I'm sure you speak to, I discovered Linda Goodman. For me, it was the book Love Signs that I bought. Big, massive, fat volume
Mm.
at the time. That kind of, I was still a teenager at the time, maybe 19, maybe even 20, but I bought that book.
Hmm.
And love signs instead of the sun signs, because I think that kind of reflected what what my priorities were at the time. Wanting to understand myself and understand relationships, and I had, so I was looking. I remember looking up. There was a Leo boy that I liked, and I looked up Leo Capricorn. My son isn't great with Leo, and but then she started talking about, yes, but if there's ascendant and moon and Venus that sort of are a good match. I'm like, oh, what's that all about? Oh,
Mm.
that's really interesting. Anyway, long story short, I found quite a few books in bookshops. I was it was all physical books back then, and I was a bit of a bookshop stalker. I would just spend hours in bookshops if I had a bit of spare time to myself. So I bought a few books, drew up my own chart from hand, did the calculation.
Oh my God, you did. How did you do it by hand? What did you use?
I had a book it was called Be Your Own Astrologer, and it calculated it didn't actually calculate your ascendant, so it was just really your aspects. And then there
Okay.
was like, yeah, then there was like a little uh you know uh in the cookbook, they call it, don't they, in
Hmm.
the back,
Hmm.
where you look up your I'm like, oh, okay, I've got Mercury in Sagittarius square Saturn in Pisces, and I read about that, and I thought, oh, that sounds awful. And then I bought another book that did look at rising signs, and it had all the tables in the back, so I was able to discover I had a Gemini rising, and that really changed things for me, because it really answered a lot of questions, with Saturn, with a Saturnian sun that doesn't have any Ptolemaic aspects, any major aspects to it. So you could call that effectively an unaspected sun, although it does have some minor aspects, of course, which are important. Um, there was a bit of me that thought, okay, yeah, I'm a Capricorn. And a lot of Capricorn energy was projected onto me. Oh, you're sensible, you're grown up, you're mature. I had to grow up quickly. I was in a single parent family for a long time, and as an only child for a long time as well. So I had to grow up quite fast and be responsible, look after myself. But when I found Gemini, rising and the North Node's in Gemini and the Jupiter's in Gemini. I thought, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense with this restlessness, with this kind of changeability, this adaptability that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Capricorn. And then when I found all the Aquarius, I thought, oh, okay, and I learned more about Aquarius. Okay, that's interesting too. You don't. I didn't feel. I didn't feel much of a sense of belonging as I was growing up. And when I actually saw my chart and really managed to dig deeper into it over several years,
Mm.
it all started to make sense. And then I was hooked. Then I geeked out totally on astrology.
So finding out your Gemini ascendant then was quite a big thing for you. So when you were reading Linda Goodman and she's talking about ascendant moons, blah blah blah. So at what point did you realise that you were more than just a Capricorn? That there was this thing called a birth chart? Can you remember what sort of an age issue might have been?
It was, I actually have still got the chart that I drew up, the handmade chart that I drew up actually. And it would have been about 1985. So I would have been 19.
20.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ooh, okay. So that's you've not even had a Saturn return then.
No,
No. And you won't
no,
even have
no.
had a Jupiter return at 20. Ooh. Ooh. Well,
Mhm.
okay. So the Gemini ascendant, then that made a lot more sense because it is a chatty ascendant, it's a
Mm,
communicative one, which you
mm.
wouldn't associate Capricorn as being. So how did you manage to, because this is the thing that when people have first start learning astrology, they've got all these different bits in their chart, and then they've got to sort of somehow make it into a person or an entity. How did you manage to sort of get all the bits together to understand yourself? How much later would that have been?
I think it was an ongoing process really. First you have that kind of awareness. Oh yes, there's something more to me. There's something that really explains these things that I can't really understand about myself.
Mm,
And I was a very shy, very quiet person when I was young, when I was a child, and when I was a young adult. You'll see I've got Mercury, the most strongest and closest square in my chart is Mercury square Saturn.
mm.
But it's Mercury in Sagittarius as well. That kind of it needs to sort of communicate. And with my North Node sitting on the ascendant as well,
Mm.
I think I began to communicate through writing and journaling and writing stories and writing poems and latterly sort of working towards and writing books as well. So I found a different way to communicate that was to put it out there. And then over the years, as you mature, I've had my second Saturn return now. Over the
Mm.
years, as you mature, I think you're more comfortable in your skin. And now I can talk the hind legs off a donkey if needs be. I can be a bit of an oversharer. It's almost like I've made up for lost time, perhaps. I think when you work through quite a few Saturn transits and a couple of Saturn returns, I think you kind of figure it out one way or another, don't you?
Yes, and it's you'll find it out, but some I don't think the astrological search stops. I don't think I've ever woken up and think, oh, I know it all now. There's always some other little corner that you can turn and go down and find out different stuff. But it does all sort of because I know whenever when we're at the conference and stuff, everybody who's listening, they're all working out whatever it is the presentation is. How does that relate to me? It's just natural. You go, oh, I've got this or I haven't got that, and then the questions from the audience will always be about their own chart. So I think it's that deep searching and learning about ourselves, which astrology I think is marvelous for.
Mm. I mean, this is the joy and the beauty of it, really, because
Mm.
it's a never ending. I think if you're going to study astrology, use astrology, become an astrologer, I think it is a quest to have an open mind to just continual learning, and that is something that I've always valued. So, as I said, when I did discover astrology, and then I could probably metaphorically put my astrological knowledge on a postage stamp even after 25 years because it's such a vast subject with so many different avenues to go. down, that you never stop learning it, and that's what's so wonderful about it. And you never stop learning about yourself, and then if you see clients, and you never stop learning about other people, which I
Mm,
think is absolutely wonderful.
mm. And so you went professional. What sort of age was it that you went? Because you're also doing mediumship and intuitive healing. Is that right?
Yeah, Reiki
Reiki.
master,
Okay.
Reiki.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when did you
yeah.
set up shop doing all of that?
Well, so what happened was, going right back to the 80s, when I first got an interest in astrology, and it was a few books and, following it and doing little bits and pieces here and there. It wasn't until I moved to London. So I actually started studying seriously in 2003, I think it was, when
Hmm.
I found out about, oh gosh, you can actually go to school and learn astrology at school. So I went to the LSA, the London School of Astrology, did the
Hmm.
3 years there, got the certificate, and then a couple of years after that, went back and did the diploma.
So that's with
Um,
Frank. Yes. Is that
with
the right
Frank,
one? Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
it
Yeah.
was yeah, it was Sue Tompkins' school when I joined, and then Frank took over, I think, halfway through my
Ah.
studies. Both brilliant teachers. I learned a lot from them. You continue, as you say, we continue learning. But from really when I started at, the LSA, as I say, the early noughties, that was when I was just totally obsessed. I mean, I would be at work, I was doing a corporate roles, and I was at work, and I would be sitting there with my ephemeris and revising, being very naughty and doing astrology while I was at work. And then, of course, colleagues and friends would come, can you look at my chart? Can you look at my chart? And, and all the rest of it. What's the compatibility with this boy that fancy? All that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think it was probably about 4 or 5 years after that when I started actually, doing it professionally, i.e., taking something for, charging for readings,
Mm-mm.
say. Um, but it was always like a little bit of a side hustle while I was working in corporate. And then what happened during the pandemic, I was going more and more towards astrology. And during the pandemic, I lost a job. I got very sick. I couldn't work for a couple of years, went back to work, found a new job. 6 months, I'm like, no, this isn't for me.
Mm.
Left. And then I thought, do you know what? I don't know what to do now. I know, why don't I really go pro with the astrology? So that's been the journey, really. Mm.
Mm. So if the pandemic hadn't happened and you weren't kicked out the job, then you
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have done it. Oh, so you had to learn the hard way then.
yeah, I had to learn the hard way, and but it was a real awakening, and it was almost like the stars aligned, we say. It was
Mm.
almost like the stars aligned, really, because it was kind of time. It was kind of time. I knew when I got the new job, I knew I was just repeating something that I knew I didn't really want to do. But you get stuck in that cycle of, well, it's regular income, it's good money, it's this, it's that, and the other, and all the rest of it. And then when I had to quit that job, really because of ill health, I was burnt out. I was just like, no, let's just give it a go. Let's just change my life. And it's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've
Wow.
absolutely
So that was a big life change in direction as far as income went and career. Yeah.
huge, huge, huge. But I'm very grateful because we're very lucky. I've got a stable home life, me and my husband. He's done really well in his career. So it's fine for me to sort of take a step back a little bit, and I'm kind of enjoying being sort of a full-time, well, a kind of 3/4 of time sort of astrologer exec, and then a quarter time a little bit of a housewife, and getting into baking and cooking, and that kind of thing. So it's been nice to have a more of a home life, more of a family life as well.
And so can you remember your first reading that you ever gave anybody and charged money
First reading I ever gave someone. Oh gosh, the first one.
or an early
Yeah,
one?
I
Mm.
think I think it, yeah, I think it might have been. Gosh, I should really remember that because it's a real kind of milestone, isn't it? I think it was probably someone who I might have studied with at the LSA.
Hmm.
Yeah, who kind of came to me, after not long after the studies are finished, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to? Could you do me a consultation?" Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And how did that
And
feel
then,
actually to
and then
be
I was
doing it? as opposed to
It was
learning about it.
yeah, it was fantastic. I had that feeling, when you listen to teachers and professional astrologers, and they talk generally, obviously we don't go into specifics about our clients because it's confidential, but they speak about how they've had that feeling you get when something really resonates with a client,
Mm.
and when they go that they have, you can kind of see that light bulb moment going off. And I remember seeing a lady. It was actually online. It was a lady in America, and she spoke. I spoke about a few things about her chart, and she turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm in therapy." She told me she had a mental health condition, and I said, "Look, I'm not qualified in sort of in psychology or therapy. I've since have studied it, but back then I wasn't." And are you in therapy? Are you having support for your condition? Because I wouldn't feel comfortable
Mm.
taking you on. She said yes, so I did, and she said in the consultation, oh, my therapist, we've talked about this. My therapist has said this to me, and she came back to me later on and said, oh, I talked to my therapist about you, and the things that you said, and that really gives you think, well, okay, it works, it's
Mm.
great, it helps, it validates,
Mm.
and all those things. So that was fantastic. That was really a real moment when I thought, yeah, this is really helpful, really useful.
Mm.
Mm,
So
mm.
your early books that you were reading were Linda Goodman, which is great. I've got all of them. I've even got that. I sold the one that it was called Goberg or something. It was like a
Oh,
long poem.
goobers. Yeah, that was a bit weird, wasn't it?
That was a little bit off the scale for me. I just thought
Yeah.
this isn't a lot of astrology, and yeah, I did have a copy of it, and I don't have a copy of it now. So I wasn't going to do that. But I like yourself. I think I got love signs first, and then I went and got sun signs. I'm sure that's right. But I've got both copies anyway. But because I wanted like yourself, because what's good in that book, and it's brilliant, she does every combo for every sign. It must have
Mm,
taken her months to write
mm,
that, absolutely months. So good credit to her,
absolutely.
because it was the every combo possible, and I kept reading it and thinking, oh, I'm doing the wrong sign of the zodiac here. But she never said she never said anybody was incompatible. She never said that this is bad, don't date this sign. She'd just talk about
Mm,
what would be easy and what wouldn't. The only thing is, though, because the book's American, I couldn't quite relate to all of that. She'd be talking about, I don't know, places that I've never been, and cities and stuff in America, and I couldn't sort of relate to
mm.
that. But yeah, I think her books. She was an Aries, I'm sure. Yeah, but those books were quite groundbreaking, and I know Sun Signs was because that was like a $1 million bestseller, etc. And so, who else have you read that you've enjoyed? Because we're then going to get onto your book. So, who else? Who other authors have you liked? Astrological ones.
Well, I think the must-have book for me really is Sue Tompkins' Aspects in Astrology. I still refer to that. I've got a copy. I need to buy it again actually because all the pages are falling out.
Hmm.
That's how well thumbed it's been. And then I really enjoyed some of the early books I bought was the Stephen Aurora books. That Arroyo, I never know how to pronounce it.
I don't know how
The
to pronounce it
astrology,
either.
psychology, and the four elements, and all that, which is a brilliant book as well.
Hmm.
And then yeah, I've got them here. And I think another early book that I bought when I was learning was Sun Sign, Moon Sign. That's here as well.
Oh, who's
Um,
that by?
Charles and Susie Harvey, and it goes through. Yeah, it goes through. I've got it here. Mm. All the combinations. The 144 again, a massive piece of work.
Mm.
144 combinations.
Gosh, yeah,
That
those
was
things take
useful.
ages. Yeah. Uh-huh.
That was really useful.
So that
But
gives you the sun sign with the moon sign.
yeah, the
Yes. Right.
combination, and then the 12 houses as well. I think that was Howard Sasporta. So I did
Mm.
buy in the early days because they are helpful. A lot of cookbook type books as well,
Mm.
and they're very useful. They sort of set you off, don't they?
Well, they give you confidence as well.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got
Mm,
the internet, which had only just got invented when I got into astrology in the 90s, the internet had just started, and I got a £10 computer program. £10, can you imagine? that I
I love
loaded
it.
onto my laptop that could do everything. It did everything. Sun here, moon there, this aspect, all the rest of it. All I had to do is have a client in front of me and just right click and then read it out. They didn't know. They weren't bothered. They got the info. It was great. I don't think computer programs do that anymore, but it literally had some blurb that had come up, which was good enough to do a consultation with. So now you've published a book. So tell us about your book.
Yeah, my book is called The On Purpose Life, and it's basically about finding life purpose. As I said, when I quit that job that I had for 6 months, I didn't know what to do really. I mean, I knew about astrology, I knew I'm making a go of astrology, but it was just like I don't really know what direction to take my life in. So and I had at the same time, I guess we might call a spiritual awakening as well. At the same time, there was a few synchronicities that kind of pointed me in various directions of the way to go. And then the information started coming in. So the story's it's not a story. It's I would say it's kind of self-help book. It's a bit of spirituality, maybe a bit of psychology. It's got exercises, and it's basically a process that I figured out as I went along, of sort of how to sort of get to know yourself better, to find out what your life purpose is. So it kind of goes from, well, first of all, you've got to ask the question, ask the question of yourself, of the universe
Mm.
that you want to find out. And then you have to get yourself into the right sort of mental space, the right vibrational space to get that to come through you, to get that to come to you. Then of course the hard bit you've got to, and this, it's not an astrology book, but astrology can help with this. Then you come up with your own blocks, your own defenses, your own challenges, the things any self-sabotaging, self-beliefs, you come up against all of that. So it's working through that. And then finally it's about having to obviously take action. So I wrote that book. That was going to be a 6-month project. That took 3 years to write in the end, because it evolved. The first draft was probably nothing like what the final draft was like. And then I applied that same method, that same structure to astrology, and it works. So I'm now slowly and taking my time over it, writing the astrology version of that book as well.
Oh, well done.
Yeah,
And did you self-publish or did you have a publisher?
I self-publish. I self-publish. It's I looked into it. If you in the kind of self-help sort of mind, body, spirit, as they call it, sort of sector, they'll only really take you on if a traditional publisher will only really take you on if you've already got a million social media followers and you've got your own marketing campaign and you've got courses and workshops and all of that kind of thing
Mm.
around it. But no, I mean, it's fabulous now. I mean, about in 2012, I published a book about Saturn in Scorpio, and it was all Kindle then.
Mm.
Now you've got paperback, you've got, print on demand. So
Yes.
it's in a paperback form as well, which is fabulous. So,
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize they can do that or don't know how to do it. So, well done to you for doing
mm,
that. I've done both. I've been published and I'm self-published, and I've done audio books as well. And the doing of it, it takes a lot of work,
mm,
but
mm,
it is doable. And I think that's
mm,
the one joy of print on demand or self-publishing or what you want to
mm,
call it. Because to start with, it was called vanity publishing back in the
mm,
day.
mm,
It's not called that now. It's called self-publishing, and it's
mm,
very, very
mm.
honourable thing to do because you know your subject. And you've got your audience, which is your mates and your fans and stuff. And what does it matter that it doesn't sell 30,000 million copies? That's not the point.
Yeah,
Yeah. So people
exactly,
get their books
exactly,
out. Mm-mm.
exactly. There's no stigma to it anymore. And publishers wouldn't go anywhere. Traditional publishers wouldn't go anywhere near self-published authors. Now they seek them out.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Mm,
Because they've understood the whole process of
mm,
it.
mm,
And we
mm.
won't get into the what's AI going to do to publish it, okay? Because that'll take us totally off track. But it's a concern for every writer. So you're qualified in other things as well. So what came first, the astrology or the other therapies?
The astrology came first. I'd done many years ago, I'd done Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. And once I was, and I kind of used it a little bit. I love using it on animals more than anything, actually, on pets. I just love using it on pets. And when I had that time on my hands after I left that job, I thought, okay, now's the time to do my Reiki master. So I did like a long weekend course, and that was wonderful. And then the other thing that happened just after, when I kind of, like I said in my book, I asked the universe, well, what now? What should I do now? Astrology is great, but I wanted to have other strings to my bow as well, other things that I could do. Of course, that's Gemini rising as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
All that Gemini stuff. Can't just do one thing.
No, no, no.
Um,
Fingers in every pie.
yeah,
Juggling all the
exactly.
balls. Yeah.
And it was actually at an astrology event. The LSA, London School of Astrology, occasionally they do a boat trip and they invite students, and it's like a graduation. They get the certificates and their diplomas, but they also invite alumni along. So I got invited to that, like a boat along the Thames kind of thing, a boat
Nice.
trip. And I was like, oh, I'll go along. It'll be great. I kind of had a feeling I needed to go along. And they had it was Frank Clifford who organised it, and he'd had a circuit medium on the boat.
Mm.
I think there was 100 people there. 5 or 6 people got their name out of a hat and they could have a reading, just for a little bit of fun. And I just kind of knew, I just had this intuition. So I sat down with this guy, great guy, I think he was called Grant Collier. And he looked at me and went, wow, you should be doing psychic mediumship. You should be doing healing. And that was really what prompted me to do this the Reiki Masters. Finally, I found a course literally in a beautiful setting just up the road from where I live. It was really gorgeous, and I told my friend who was on the boat with, this is all the things that he said. I should get into psychic mediumship, blah 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 blah. And she said, "Oh yes, that sounds interesting." She spoke to her daughter,
Hmm.
who is really he's a psychic medium, very spiritual. She told her daughter, and her daughter said, "Oh, there's this free online kind of few days, few evenings of just a free sort of taster of sort of spiritual development." So I did that,
Hmm.
and it was then there was a huge program online. There's an American lady; she was wonderful. You could sign up for the program online and all the rest of it. But then I didn't sign up for that, but I discovered that the London College, the Psychic College of Psychic Studies in London, and I joined that course. So I've been doing courses on and off in psychic mediumship there ever since, really. So
Mm.
I'll skip a term here and there.
Hmm.
It's all practical, and yeah, so we practice on each other. I've started doing readings for other people now as well, and yeah, it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. It's an ongoing thing. I'm a little bit like, wow, where did that come from? You get messages, you get people come through, you get messages come through. I get the clairvoyance, I get the clairaudience, I get the clairsentience, so the seeing, the hearing, and the feeling. You get a combination. I get a combination of all of
Oh,
that.
wow. You get the whole lot.
Yeah, that's developed actually. Started off
Mm.
more with clairvoyant, but then as you go along, more clair, so to speak, come
Mm.
in. And at the same time as well, just before the pandemic started, literally, literally the pandemic started while I was in my second term of a certificate in higher education of in psychodynamic counselling. So it was a 2 year course in itself. It was also the foundation for the clinical training as well, if you wanted to go on and do the 3 year masters to become a qualified um, um, psychotherapist. But I
Hmm.
did the 2 years. Unfortunately, most of that was online because of the pandemic. But I did that 2 year course. At the same time, I had my own therapy as well. I put myself in therapy. It wasn't actually, you didn't have, it wasn't mandated if you did this level of course that you would have to have your own therapy. But I thought I can't really be learning the techniques and learning the theory behind it without actually experiencing it. So I had a good year and a half of psychotherapy, and I also had a couple of rounds of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So that was really useful. That's really useful for I did it really to help with my astrology so I could develop my consulting work.
Mm.
I did consider going on to do the clinical training, but I just, for various reasons, I didn't do that in the end.
Hmm. And you've got in your chart in equal house, you've got a bundle of planets in the eighth, haven't you? What we got in there?
Mm,
So you've got, yeah, so in equal house, you've got the moon and Mars in the
mhm,
eighth. So the
mhm,
moon is how we
mhm,
feel, and Mars's action, aggression, and energy in eighth house is the psychic bit of the chart. So the
Mm,
12th and the 8th are the psychic bit. So you've got your moon. So you're going to do quite well at that equal house
mm.
star, being able to feel your way through it. So which one of your sentience is more developed? The visual, the audible? Which one would you say was your top of the list one?
Yeah, I think clairvoyance
Uh-huh.
and clairsentience are, I would say, equal.
Right.
Clairsentience, where you get a feeling, it's either a bodily sensation. So I'll get tingles, or I'll get sort of sensations in various parts of my body. Mostly I'll get tingles. When something is really resonating, I'll get particularly around the crown chakra, I'll get like it'll all start tingling. Or if it's really resonating, I'll get like body chills.
Mm.
And then I'd also get emotional feelings as well. I remember one chap who I was practicing with class. Um, he had a spiritual teacher. I think it was yoga, but it went beyond yoga. And this guy was in spirit, and he came through, and I felt his energy, and the most beautiful, wonderful peace. I wanted to stay in that energy forever, so you can actually feel that energy coming through. And he was able to
Mm.
translate that back and say, wow, this feels great. So
Wow,
that's
nice.
it's it's I think it's a privilege to um be able to communicate in that way. I think it feels to me like a privilege, like a gift, rather than a skill or a talent. It feels like, I'm allowed, that I'm a privilege to be allowed to experience these things, if you know what I mean. And to
Yeah.
help people as well. I mean, help people with it can be very, 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 very reassuring for people. A friend of mine lost his partner very recently, and I've been supporting him in various different ways, but one of them has been through we're doing a bit of spiritual psychic mediumship with him
Mm.
to reassure him that his partner, she's okay, she's
Mm.
fine, she's doing okay.
Well, those are things that people definitely need to hear because there's
Mm,
always a worry. There's always unsaid things, or especially if the,
mm,
the the death is unexpected, people haven't
mm,
had a chance to say goodbyes. Being able
mm.
to say goodbye is so important.
It was
Some
it was sudden. It was sudden, and
was
then
there.
it was very sudden and very unexpected. So they didn't, and she was missing for a few days before she was reported dead. So it was pretty horrible for him. I mean, she was a very close friend of mine as well. So it was for both of us. We've been supporting each other, really, I suppose.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. That's sad.
Mm.
Hmm. So, how have you coped with a lifetime being under the influence of Pluto? Because when you were born, Pluto's the bottom of your chart. It's the second planet in your chart. The
Mhm.
first one's Jupiter, then you got Pluto. So you would have soon after birth had Pluto conjunct your Uranus. So you'd be age 1 or so. And then this is using solar arcs. And then you've got a bit of a gap, and then Pluto's going to conjunct to your Neptune, then it's going to do your Mercury, then 2008 goes into Capricorn, it smacks into your sun sign, goes all the way through your eighth house where you're learning all these mystical things, goes past your MC, your sun sign, your moon, and then it's coming towards your Venus now. So you basically will have had a whole lifetime of being, inverted commas, under the influence of Pluto. Do you feel it that way or not?
Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful. I felt light as a feather. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I think what's really fascinating is these transits of solar arcs. If you're talking solar arcs here, which you are, I think, is they tell a story. They tell a
Mm,
story, don't they?
mm.
And am I right in thinking that my natal Pluto Uranus sits in the fourth house in equal?
Correct.
Correct. And actually, that makes a lot more. It's in the fifth in Placidus, which is my default go-to, but it makes a
Hmm.
lot of sense with it in the fourth house. My parents split up round about the time when the first Pluto
Hmm.
connection that you talked about. So that was obviously quite a difficult thing. I was obviously too young to remember, but I do have some memories of things that happened after that were quite difficult.
Mm.
And my mum was a single parent. She didn't have my brother. She had my brother 21 years difference between us. She had him with her second husband, so that was a long way off. So, and this was in the late 60s, early 70s, when it was taboo to be a single parent. So there's your Pluto theme. And
Mm.
we've got Moon Mars there on the MC, the parental axis.
Mm.
Um, they're actually in a sesquiquadrate. I don't know whether you use sesquiquadrate. They're in a sesquiquadrate aspect to Uranus and Pluto as well.
Yes,
So you
yes, it's on there.
can yeah, so you can see that signature of a
But
single
I'm just thinking
parent.
about the transit. Pluto's transited through the sign of Virgo, then Libra. You haven't got anything in Libra, but you've got stuff in Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius.
Mm.
And Pluto's going to also, transit-wise, is going to be continuously making this long, slow, plod journey all the way through
Yeah,
the right-hand side of your chart. You're
yeah,
stuffed.
yeah. Never going to end. When Pluto was on my sun, that was really interesting. But
Mm.
very Pluto was on my sun. It was quite literal. It was to do with partnership, and the strong things were about partnership and money and debt and taxes. So it was very literal. Pluto transit there. And now I've got it on, I've had it on my Mars. It's going to be coming up to my moon as well,
Yeah.
Pluto.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
let us know
So
what that feels
Pluto
like.
on Mars was especially. Oh, it's not. Yeah, it's been quite difficult. I've had some very difficult situations with some of the men in my family. Without going into too much detail, there's been again, it's about money and inheritance and wills and all that kind of thing. And
Mm.
I've yeah, I've had a lot of let's say anger directed at me, a lot of perhaps we might say a little bit of subterfuge and all that kind of thing, which is
Mm.
it's kind of hopefully it's getting a little bit better. It's kind of changing a little bit. It's kind of getting a little bit more tolerable is the word I could say.
Yes, I don't think it helps when a planet's retrograde, but when it goes direct,
Mm,
then it's
mm,
it's back on its
yeah.
path again. But everything's retrograding, so we'll
Mm, mm.
we'll support you during your retrogrades, Mandy.
But Pluto turns you into a survivor.
Mm.
It gives you strength. It gives you empowerment. It does transform you, and it really shows you the, for want of a better word, all the crap comes up, and
Mm.
then you can see it, and you can dig deep into it and cleanse it and clear it. And so it is about I think it's more about maybe emotional psychological survival.
Mm.
It's almost like going to the depths of hell and coming back up into the light. And when you're into the light, then you can see things for what they really are, and then you can become empowered. So that's I think the process. That's the process. I'm quite a deep person. As you can probably imagine, quite intense at times as well.
Yeah. So if you were starting, so we have a lot of beginner astrologers listen to the podcast. What advice would you give to a beginner astrologer that probably at some point wanted to set up and practice? What advice would you give to like your younger sort of non-professional self? What advice could you give out to somebody who's just starting out?
Yeah, if you can take some classes, if that's what you want to do, you can self-learn as well through books and through the internet as well. And there are internet classes, some of them are even free. There's some brilliant YouTube channels as well. So seek out good ones. And then I think, as well as reading about astrology, going to classes, like do some astrology. Keep a journal. Once you start learning about your aspects, and once you start getting to the point where you start learning about your transits, then you can go back over the years. The first thing I would do, and did do, was go back over all my Saturn transits. But then I've got Saturn rules of most of the stuff in my chart. But if you're using traditional
Mm.
rulerships, going back over those Saturn transits, because they're very predictable in terms of when they happen, the timings that they happen. You can go through those stages. You can see, oh, what happened then? What happened then? And then you can see how we can look it up in the books, but then you see how they work for you, and then look at the transits going back through history, but also ongoing for close friends if they want you to do that, for family members, for partners, and really make it come to life. And then I think the other thing is as well, when you've got a good basic idea of the language of astrology, because remember, language is an astrology, and you can really geek out. If you're a person who loves to geek out and you get into astrology, you're in heaven, really. But when you start to sort of learn the themes of the aspects, just generally, even if you've just got a few keywords, if you follow the news and you follow culture, you can start to see that happening in the world. You can kind of say, oh, we've got Mars Uranus today. There was a volcanic eruption somewhere. We've got, whether it's the weather, whether it's even culture, whether it can be reflected on what's popular on television, or what films are and what movies are playing at the cinema. You can see the astrological themes coming through, and that's when you go, brilliant. And it's also fun, I think, to do that as well. And I think to have fun with astrology is a good thing too. Just enjoy it.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, because then that helps you move forwards for sure, for sure. Mandy, thank you very much for speaking with us today. So if we want to find you, we've got to go to onpurposeastrology.com, correct? That's the website where
Yeah.
you hang out. So if you need to contact Mandy, she's at onpurposeastrology.com. So you can whiz over there and see her. So thank you very much for speaking with us today. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you soon. Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you for having me.
So just a reminder, you can pop over to the website, maryish.com. Little box pops up, pop your email in there, and then you'll get a 20% discount. And you can use it on astrology, palmistry, psychic readings, and hypnotherapy. And I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now.